Welcome to the Secret Stash podcast. I'm your host, Kylina Falzone. Today's guest is Molly Arment, owner of Creative Landscape here in Crested Butte, Colorado. Join us for a conversation where we explore ways to deal with depression, rid yourself of toxic relationships, and find the support to nurture a change if you might need one. This episode is brought to you by Crested Butte State of Mind. It's okay to not be okay. CB State of Mind is based on the belief that you are never alone. They are here to help you connect with your inner power and ability to find solutions to the issues you are facing. CB State of Mind connects our community to resources, education, and free counseling scholarships to stand up to stigma, increase mental wellness, and lower the rate of suicide in the Gunnison Valley. Today we have Molly. I'm super excited. Molly and I talked a little bit last week, and we are here live today to tell some stories regarding mental health.
So CB State of Mind is a nonprofit in the Gunnison Valley that is based around raising awareness against the stigma against mental health and just talking about mental health a lot more to reduce stigma and to prevent suicide, which happens a lot in small towns and ski towns. It's definitely not just Crested Butte or Gunnison in the Gunnison Valley. It's a lot of places where it's beautiful here. We live in paradise, and so a lot of people wouldn't expect that there is a high rate of depression and feeling isolated, even though we live in these communities that are close, you know. We live in a small town.
Yeah, we live in a small town, and we have off seasons here, and it's hard. A lot of the year it's dark early, and people are isolated, especially with this is 2020. We're in the middle of this pandemic, which has just been terrible for these types of issues. And I just want to make it really apparent in our community that it's okay. I've had a lot of friends and employees commit suicide, been very close to them, and a lot of them I feel may have been able to been here if they were surrounded by the right people in the right communities of friends and support systems.
Yeah, and just not just in Crested Butte, but all over the world, there's a stigma against mental health. So when you really are suffering, even if you wanted to reach out and ask for help, a lot of people don't know how. And so that is one thing that CB State of Mind is trying to do, is to be a kind of information center where we can direct people to the help that they need. And then another thing that we're doing is setting up people with free scholarship for therapy.
Yeah, so
free scholarships.
Yeah, free scholarships. We're going to be we're going to be raising money this whole entire month. The Secret Stash is partnering with CB State of Mind, and we have all of our employees in the hats, and we're selling merchandise. I'm also asking for donations, so you can donate below if you would like to support CB State of Mind. I am a super big supporter of this program. Probably would have used it if it was available when I was going through some stuff in my life. And we just really want to make this really easy to talk about, because sometimes when we are depressed or we're having anxiety, we just don't know what to do. We don't know where to go. And we want to be able to make CB State of Mind very accessible for people to be able to call and just be like, yo, I need some help. I need to talk to somebody. I'm not feeling great right now. A lot of people here are away from their families. Families are across the country, and it's a very unique person that, comes to live in Crested Butte. It's a very unique community.
Unique, but we are often have so many similarities on the reasons why we come here, and which is why we can make great connections. But yeah, it's pretty incredible how alone you can feel when you are surrounded by that. And sometimes that's what makes it harder, and you're just like, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel so alone when there's people surrounding me? And that's something that talking about it can really help. And then for me, medication has really helped. And I had such a hard time accepting that. It has been years of my life that I have not wanted to take medication. And part of that is just general stigma, like, big pharma being overprescribed and just stuff like that. And I also had a bad past experience with antidepressants. So that's another reason that I just really haven't wanted to try again. And I have tried again in the past and then just quit after a little bit. You start feeling better, and then I have trouble keeping track of when I've taken it. And then so recently I've started again, and it's been really wonderful. It's like, oh, I can think clearly. Oh, I'm not, being affected by this like crushing sadness that I felt all the time. And I can leave my house and walk down the street and enjoy the sunshine instead of not being able to do that. So
let's talk a little bit about, your earlier years and when you first felt like you had, that feeling and how old you were, and just kind of give a background of like how that all started for you.
Yeah. I guess I first noticed I started feeling depressed when I was in middle school. I was probably in 7th grade. I moved to a new school for middle school, so I'd been there for 6th grade, but I moved to a small town, so it's kind of hard to get in there with a group of kids that have been together since they were, in diapers. And then being the new kid in a small town is hard. I'm sure it's hard everywhere. And then, of course, you have the things with like all the new hormones and stuff coming in at those ages. And then I also am pretty highly reactive to being teased because I'm an only child, so I'm a pretty good target for that, and certainly when I was younger. So I got teased a lot, which I'm sure had something to do with it. I was, at home. My home life was a little bit confusing just with my mom was going to get married and didn't end up getting married, but we were all living it was just confusing, at that time. So of course, it's just like with lots of upheaval, you kind of start to feel strange. So I did approach my mom and I told her that that I was feeling really strange, and then I thought that I was depressed, and then it's been so long I can't really remember how long it did take me to start talking to someone. I kind of remember it being a long time, but you're young, and it's like, is a couple of months a long time? I don't know.
Yeah,
how
and just
long
like at that point, the hormones are a big piece of that. There's physical stuff happening in your body, and how do you control that? And how do you know the difference between anxiety, hormones, stress, depression?
Yeah.
Everybody feels it different.
Yeah, absolutely. And so talking to someone is really important, and I definitely believe that. But the next part of my story is that I talked to someone that wasn't good for me. I've thought about it a lot. Maybe wasn't trained to deal with like kids or adult. I guess I wasn't a kid.
Was it a school therapist or was it?
No, she was a therapist.
Just in the area?
In the area, yeah. She was an older woman. I don't know how old. Again, being young, it's kind of hard to tell, but she might have been in her 60s. I don't know, something like that. Or late 50s, 60s. I don't know, something like that. And she just wasn't the right fit for me. And she did say some things to me that were really damaging to my self-esteem. One of them being, I think going to a therapist would be a great place to learn that we're all responsible for our own emotions. And I think that is something that would be good to learn from her. And I think she may have been trying to teach me that because at the time I felt so responsible for the way that my mom felt, the way that, I thought that my actions really affected the people around me because other people's emotions really do affect me. And you just have to learn that tactics and tools on how to control your emotions and who you are and how to self-care and tend to yourself so that you can have some good self-esteem, But so I thought that I was like having a bunch of effect on other people and I felt a lot of guilt and shame when I didn't perform well, and I was worried about how I might be affecting other people with my failures, which quotations, right? And the therapist said to me, "Do you really think you're that important?" And I think she was trying to say, we all control our emotions. But that, of course, at the time, I was like, oh, no, I don't think I'm that important, So that kind of like added to it. And I think that I share that part of the story not to place blame on this woman, but to just say if you are talking to a therapist and it doesn't feel right, then stop seeing that therapist and find a new one. And that even if you're young going into therapy, you still have that power. You're paying the therapist to work for you. So if you don't feel that connection and bond with them, then please feel like you have the right to change, because you do. So
yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that a lot, where people are, I've tried therapy before and it didn't work. I just didn't get along with her. But like, find the right one. Find the right one that works for you. Everybody's different. There's a multitude of different levels of therapists out there. And I would encourage everybody to like really try to find the right therapist that can help you, and they're out there.
Yeah,
and
they absolutely are. And I've found some in the Valley that I've really enjoyed talking to.
Yeah,
and
there's some great people here that can help. And I think that, let's talk about this, when our friends are giving us advice.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and even myself, I've gone through some stuff, and I just recently wrote a book I'm about to publish, but I go in depth on a lot of those topics. We're not going to really talk about it today. But, my friends were like, oh, let's just go have a drink. Or I would hear, just get out and exercise, or just go for a bike ride. And for me, it's not a physical release. It was a mental release. So I feel, and I know that our friends love us, and I know that our friends want to give us good advice, but sometimes our friends aren't qualified to give us the right advice.
And I mean, it is great advice to go outside, get some exercise, breathe some fresh air. I mean, yeah, it's great advice for anyone. But if someone's really struggling and really going through something, a bike ride's not going to cure it. They, or maybe for that small amount of time when you're going downhill really fast, and it's like you have to focus, because if you don't, if you let your mind wander to all these like negative thoughts that you're having, or thoughts about a hard situation, extreme sports can take that away for a moment. But it is really important to deal with those feelings that you're having, and to be able, I know we've talked about this before, but being able to sit alone with yourself. And what was that quote that you said about?
The quote is, all humanity's problems are from men's inability to sit alone in a room. Mm-hmm. It's Pasquale. That it's hard. It's hard to, I'm a very type A personality. It's hard for me to sit with myself, but sometimes when I do, I hear the stuff that I need. But we're so plugged in today with social media and Instagram, and everybody has earpods in, and we're connected to our computers, that sometimes you have to get quiet to like listen to what your brain is telling you. I think it's really important. But let's touch back on
on the friends. So even if they do have some good advice, it might not be the advice that's right for you, because sometimes you need the advice of a professional, someone who has studied the way that the human mind works, and knows more about that, about neuroplasticity and how to get your mind to change after you've been ingrained in certain patterns, certain habits for so long, and just really learn more about yourself. Your friends aren't qualified for that. And really, that's a lot of responsibility to put on someone who isn't trained, So I think we were talking about before, like, how do you, if you're reaching out for help and you do have a friend to reach out to, just know people's limits, I guess. Like, let your friends know that you want to share something with them, but you're not expecting them to fix the problem. But maybe enlisting your friends and helping you to seek help, the professional help, people who are trained.
Yeah, and if you don't have that support system, some people don't have that friend that they can go to say, hey, I'm not feeling great. I'm upset. I don't feel awesome. I need someone to talk to. They don't have that friend. That's what CB State of Mind is here for. It's that phone call. It's the bridge between, having friends, family, support system, and not having one. And I think that's what's really important here, because not everybody has friends and families here locally. And again, a lot of people don't want to reach out. So, if you feel like you don't want to talk to your mom and dad about it, and you don't think they're the right people to listen, then make the call to CB State of Mind. There's people that are trained, and they're so happy and willing to and want to help. Like this whole program wouldn't be started. These people care. I mean, I know the people involved in CB State of Mind, and they're incredible people.
Yeah,
and they
absolutely.
do care.
Yeah.
And I feel so lucky that we have this resource here in Crested Butte, and I really want to encourage people to call them. It doesn't, whatever you're feeling, whatever the pressure is. And
yeah, or go onto the website and there's a really nice list of all the therapists and kind of a description of what they specialize in. And then also I was reading comments the other day, somebody who was rewarded with a scholarship, and they were able to use that money to see the therapist that they had, and so they didn't have to switch therapists, which I know can be really daunting for some people. If you've been going to someone for a while and you can't afford to pay them anymore, and you have to stop seeing them, or say you have to switch therapists because you move, whatever it is, it's hard to start over with someone if you do have a relationship with a therapist that you want to keep. So I thought that was really great that this client was able to use her scholarship towards seeing someone that she had seen before, so that she could really just continue to work on herself in that way with that person. And then, if you don't have a therapist, being able to find one through our website is a great way. We have a lot of people working with us, and it's really, really great. When we started, I've been involved for a little over a year, and when we started, we had a goal that we would grant 6 scholarships, and that we would at least do that. And year to date, we've done 38 scholarships. So we've really just exceeded our expectations so much.
Awesome.
And it's really great. And so we want to be able to be consistent with still being able to give those scholarships. And it's been great that we have been getting donations, and we've been able to provide so much more than we initially thought we could, and we just want to be able to keep doing that. And we're really a young, I was going to say corporation.
Organization.
Organization.
Young organization.
There we go. We're a young organization. And it's great that we've been able to do so much in 1 year, and I'm really excited to see where we can go from here, and how much more we can provide to the Valley. And I think a lot of people don't know about us yet, and I think that this will really help to spread the word. So thanks.
I think it will too. And I just want to go back a little bit about, you were saying, you started feeling this stuff at a younger age, as a teenager year. Can we just fast forward from 5 to 10 years and tell me what that looked like for you? What was your life like? How did you make the steps?
With the steps of life, or the steps to
just kind of
the steps of life.
The steps of life. And how were you getting yourself out of these positions that you were in, or the feelings that you were in? And
for a long, long time, I ignored it. Like I said, I had trouble with this counselor. I had a bad experience with antidepressants, and I was kind of just I don't really want to deal with this. I ignored it. I put it to the side, and instead just went forward. Going to college was really fun. Of course, college is great when you first go. Everybody is really excited to meet people and make new friends, so people are really open. And for me, that was a big difference from what I felt like in growing up in high school. I felt much more on the outside of things, like I didn't fit in, and so, but even with all of that in college, like I was hiding from these deeper things that I had going on. And so, like that led to me doing some pretty common stuff like partying too much instead of studying as much as I should have in college. But also, I think I can look back and say that I did that in a way that some other people don't. I did that in a way really to self-medicate, to get rid of pain. And I did that for a long time because I do like to have fun, and being able to self-medicate and make yourself feel good and like have fun with your friends, that can get really overwhelming and sometimes either lead you places you don't want to go, or just, in my case, let yourself just ignore your problems for years, and also not tending to those things and not being willing to learn about yourself and what you need. Then, it's, people talk about it all the time. It's just really cyclical. You just keep getting in the same situations over and over again. If you have really low self-esteem, like I have had, you get in relationships with people that don't treat you well, and kind of just reinforce those ideas that have how you feel badly about yourself. That's a big way to attract people that want to manipulate you, and and so I dealt with that in college, and at other points in my life, I've been in some pretty abusive relationships that have really altered my life as well, and that kind of, that's another thing that people don't talk about, and that's a huge problem. Not being able to open up about these things. A lot can be solved by just talking about things, or just getting things on the table and out in the open. Yes, please go on.
Just, I know that when you were in a few of those relationships where, you were in a physical situation, and I want you to kind of tell the women and listeners and young girls out there how to identify that. And I know that you were, in your head, you were like, when we talked last time, things are going to get better. Things are going to get better. We talked a little bit about.
For me, I guess one of the things that I've learned about love growing up is like loyalty. You're like loyal to the people that you love. So then when I'm like 19, 20 years old and I'm with this really abusive person, and somehow I thought it was like that it was love to stick it out, and I'll be there for you during your intense emotional problems where you insult me and throw things, and like I'm doing that because like I love you, and me taking this abuse is my proof that I love you. And then again, that's, that says something. And when I say that, I'm like, oh, well, what about you? What about the way that you feel, Molly, and that was just like never really in my head. I thought I was being strong. And that's another thing about, I guess I started talking about partying when you said, how did you handle it? And I said I ignored it. But I guess, in the back of your mind, that you're ignoring some things that you need to deal with. And I thought I was being strong. I thought that, that ignoring my problems and not bothering other people with them was the way to go, and the way to be a good person, a strong person, a friend for others that doesn't bring up their own problems. That's not really what your friends want. Of course, they don't want to listen to you all the time, as we're talked about. They're not trained to do that, but your friends do want to connect with you. That's how people are, they want to help you go through life. That's what, life is pretty tough, so it's nice to have friends that you can trust and open up to. So. And
how did you what did you do when you, how did you get out of that relationship? What steps did you take to finally say that, okay, this isn't love. This isn't how I should be treated.
I got out of it. we had been having problems. I went over to his house and, we were talking in his room and he punched a hole in the wall really close to where I was sitting, like really close to my head, And although he had acted like that before many other times, that for some reason I was just like, I can't deal with this anymore. I came over here to talk to you about the way things have been going. And, so I went upstairs and luckily his roommate was there, so I say luckily just because although he didn't hear anything that was going on with us, like he was there so that I didn't have any time to hide my emotions. I was in a state of emotion. I told him what had happened, which in other circumstances, in an abusive relationship, sometimes you protect the person that's abusing you. And I've definitely lied or twisted the truth in order to protect someone that was being really horrible to me. And that's, just learning about those relationships you kind of get into this trauma bond. You really do that. So how did I get out of it? That was too much. I told John about it, the roommate, and of course he was mad because he was like, probably thinking about a security deposit, punching holes in the walls, but just more so than what I was thinking about. And so it was out there. So I was able to kind of get away from that. It finally just happened. But honestly, I wasn't really dealing with it enough because it happened again. I got sucked into another relationship like that with the same personality types. And
can you identify why you think you went back to a similar type of person, or how do you identify that?
Yeah, because in the beginning, people do something called love bombing, I think it happens in just a regular romantic relationship where things feel really intense at the beginning and the person's giving you all this positive attention. And I think especially for someone that is getting their validation from external sources, which is what I think I've learned to do, like, oh, good grades, oh, like, all of those things that people validate you for all these external factors versus just having an innate worth because you're a human being, and having that good self-esteem. So I think that identifying factors are, when things are just like really intense and you just get so wrapped up in it and they're like, aren't you so lucky to like fall in love and find this other person that you connect with so much. And then as that goes on, that person might start making little digs at you. And, you can remember back to times when you're like, oh yeah, I wasn't making excuses for them. Like they said something that really hurt me and I was able to explain it away. They didn't really mean to say it like that, and it just like over time, those little.
So, that's a sign.
That's a sign.
That's a sign.
Yeah.
If you're constantly making excuses for the person.
Yeah. And saying, oh, they didn't mean to hurt. Or if you say you aren't making excuses for them, then you bring it up to them, you say, oh, that really hurt me the way you did, they're going to dismiss you and tell you either you're crazy for feeling that way or something less dramatic like that's not an apology. They're going to turn it around and make you almost feel bad just for even bringing it up, and that kind of gaslighting behavior goes on a lot, so gaslighting being a term that just when really manipulative people are kind of messing with your head, they are trying to get you to disbelieve your reality and your perceptions. And so then that's another thing that after a certain amount of time of like just undermining your intuition, what you think, someone that you love is telling you subtly that you don't know what's going on. You get really confused and really just start to doubt yourself on a very base level and not be able to
yeah. And I feel
really
like
trust yourself or know yourself.
Yeah, it's not okay. It's not okay for women, girls, even men in positions like this to feel that way. It's not normal. And you have to try to figure out to learn the signs of what's happening so that you can make an educated decision to get yourself out of there.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, absolutely. And as a preventative thing, of course, there are all sorts of tactics. And if you are in that situation, there are many programs that can help. Specifically in the Gunnison Valley, you could get involved with Project Hope, and I'll just say that. But self-medicating.
Maybe talk a little bit about that. Like
self-medicating will work for a long time. It will work for a long time, but it does not fix anything. And by work, you're just masking it. You're making whatever you're dealing with just 100 times worse, because although we could go through so many painful experiences in life, and if you're trying to figure that out and how to deal with that, you learn that you have to go through the pain, and by self-medicate to get over the pain, you have to feel the full extent of it. And even though you're so scared to feel that, nobody wants to feel pain, so you self-medicate, and then that pain doesn't actually go away until you feel it, until you work through it, until you just learn on how you personally need to deal with it. Everyone is so different and goes through so many different struggles, whether it's grief from the loss of a loved one, or grief, from the loss of innocence through sexual assault, or, just there's so many things that we all go through on a huge scale that, if you haven't experienced something that's as bad as the person sitting next to you, there's no comparison there. What you feel is what you feel. And so if something hurts you, if something's bothering you, it matters. And being able to know that just because you're not the person that's the worst off in the world, the saddest, sad person who's had the worst life ever, there's 7 billion of us, someone's had it worse than you. But just because that doesn't mean that your struggles aren't valid and real and deserving of asking for help. And that's one thing with these scholarships that CB State of Mind is offering, is that I think it's so important to talk before it gets too bad, because we're just saying you can't reach out for help. If you're planning to kill yourself and you're already thinking steps of how to do it, or even if you're not, say, planning out steps, but those thoughts are just there, and
or Googling stuff.
You have that ideation of just feeling terrible. Once I'm in landscaping, so I dig a lot, but I was just oh my God, I just want to dig a hole, and I want to crawl into it, and I just want to cover myself up so no one can see me, and then, I was having these thoughts, and I was oh, Molly, that's a grave. You want to just go curl up in the ground. Thoughts like that are a sign that you should be talking to someone about it, because that's goes against an organism just wanting to live, everything on earth is just here to propagate and survive. And so just knowing when you have those thoughts going through your head that that's a lie that your brain is telling you right now, that you do need to go out there and talk to someone about it and get help, and just be able to have that third-party perspective. Talk to your friends is great, and then, as we said, taking their advice with a grain of salt, or just really telling them what you need from them, which really is just their support and love, And I think a lot of times that's where misguided advice is given. It's out of support and love, but you just don't know what to say.
Yeah, so. And obviously we're not trained doctors, and we're not, we're just talking about things. But 40 million Americans will be diagnosed with some mental health problem, and over half of us will experience some type of mental illness in our lifetime, and a lot of them will never be clinically diagnosed. They'll just go through life with we all know what it's like to feel overwhelmed, worried, not connected with people. And so like, it's an okay thing. But the problem is our brains, people think, oh my God, my mother was depressed. My father committed suicide. This is my path. Mm-hmm. It is so not true. That is not your path. You have 100% control of your life, and to get help and get it fixed, and get the tools that you need. We're all going to get stuff for the rest of our life. We're going to be triggered by all sorts of things, and getting the right tools to be able to deal with these feelings is what we're trying to get out into the world. That everything that we it's learned. It's all learned, right? We can learn, like you said, your mind's telling us a lie, and there's exercises and there's tools, there's meditation, things that counselors can teach us to be able to handle these feelings that we have.
Absolutely. And everybody needs that. I was just thinking about, I think we've talked a little bit about like, what is the thing that you could say to your younger self? Like, what is the thing that could get you to listen, to take some advice, to, and now I'm 36, and this has been going on for a long time, and I've had big ups and big downs, and sometimes I've regretted some of this lost time where I've just spent it ignoring my problems, because then that made bigger problems or led to isolation and, in places where you don't want to be just because you're trying to protect yourself. But, you often go down the wrong path when you're just when you're operating from like fear. I guess that's a kind of a cheesy thing to say, but if you're just like in survival mode and you just want to keep yourself from pain, so oftentimes you ignore the pain.
And you're an entrepreneur.
Oh yeah.
You run your own company.
I do, yeah. I have a landscaping business, and it's called Creative Landscape. Because I've always considered myself a creative person, but I also just thought it was funny with that title. I'm like, is this like Honest Joe's car sales? Like, ooh, you're so honest, you're so creative. But anyway, my business is Creative Landscape, and I love working outside, and I love working for myself. And why did I start it? Because I was burnt out. I worked in the restaurant industry. I was the manager. I didn't have a good relationship with the person that I worked for. I was just so tired of telling people what to do and checking up on them. Are you doing it? And then also I worked for a landscaping company, and I was running their team where they do more hardscape landscaping, which is kind of what I try to do too, although I do some gardening work. But and I was tired of teaching people. I was just really burnt out. I pushed so hard for so long. Like I said, I was just trying to be strong, and I burn out. And something about owning your own business and being your own boss that is wonderful is that you can, depending on your business, I suppose, but is that you can really run your own schedule, run your own time. In these past years, I have been really affected by my depression while working. Sometimes it's hard to leave my house. When I first started, I was like so paralyzed with feeling unworthy and just like, like I didn't know what I was doing, and it was hard to leave my house. Sometimes I'd drive to a job site and not be able to do my work, and then I would like leave. I just had such a a lot of negative self-talk going on. So yeah, I do have a business, and a lot of times I question what I'm doing, but I'm so grateful for it, and then I also recently started getting into, I'm like, oh, okay, I need some help. I can't do all this manual labor by myself now. And so just being able to get into a place where now I'm like branching out, and hopefully as I get I don't want to get too big. All my stuff is traveled by word of mouth right now, but I don't want to get too overwhelmed. That was a big goal of mine when I started my own business, was to not be overwhelmed. But yeah, being able to maybe hire a couple people and kind of provide some jobs in the valley, because that's so important right now. And it's definitely, people want their yards and gardens to look nice, so there's lots of availability for that.
And just like getting to know you, I think you're an amazing person, and I would want to work for you.
Oh, thanks.
I need to get outside more.
I would want to work for you, Kai.
I'm an indoor kid. I spend a lot of time indoors. But let's talk a little bit about, like, what's your routine now? What's your morning? Are you into yoga? Are you into meditation? I have my little meditation lady on our desk today because I think it's important for us to exercise our brains.
Yeah, I was looking at that. It's beautiful. Am I into meditation? Am I into meditation? Yeah, I am. I have used a Headspace app sometimes, and then I said that so confidently, and it's like the longest I've ever meditated in a row is, I think, almost a month. They were talking like
30 days. That's great.
20, yeah.
That's a lot.
So, but yeah, I'm in and out of that. I know it's really good for me. When I do start doing that, it's really helpful. But it is nice to have an app or something to guide you. I know there's a lot of good ones. Like I said, I use Headspace. I've heard that Calm is really good. But yeah, as we were saying, being able to sit with yourself and be able to kind of, what are your thoughts telling you, and how can I connect with myself a little bit more? And, you know, for me, when things have gotten really bad and it's just so easy to, like, say, stream hours and hours of television and stuff, you know, and so just being with our modern day, like, technology and stuff, just being able to, like, immediately grab your phone and just be able to, like, cut off your own voice and just be like, what? I'm going to, like, read what somebody else thought about these memes. Like, you know, like, why am I scrolling through stuff like that on the internet? But it's so you don't have to face your thoughts, you know. You're trying to just, like, get that that dopamine hit of instantaneous gratification. And I think that that's something that really affects people who have poor mental health. And then it also, as I think more research is showing, that technology, social media is all really causing some mental health problems that that people may not otherwise experience if it weren't for their social media consumption. Obviously, just some people are going to go through what they go through and have mental health problems.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, everybody should watch Social Dilemma. It's a Netflix film. I actually cried during it several times.
I had to pause many, many times to, like, have an outburst of, like, conversation about what was going on. And it's like, okay, back to the,
you know, and I think today we're under so much more pressure with the likes and all the stuff we see on social media, and these girls are more beautiful for me, and oh my God, they look so happy with their husband and their 4 kids. And guys, I'm just telling you, everybody struggles. And if they don't, I'd like to meet them, because I just don't.
How'd you do that?
Yeah, I just don't think it's a reality. I think that everybody struggles. We all handle it differently. The internet, I love it. I love it and I hate it. I love it because you can find the communities out there. I always tell the people that I talk with and that I'm like, you know, stuff like this. I talk to a lot of my employees. Sometimes I feel like a counselor, but no, I am not trained. But
or sometimes when you've gone through your own experiences and you have really experienced some counseling and you have some knowledge and you do feel that way, maybe you can give good advice. But I feel you need to be really careful that your good advice is paired.
It's good for them.
It's good for them and paired with some professional advice if that's called for, you know?
So I think we're really lucky today with the internet to be able to get out there and follow people that inspire you, follow people that help you get the information that you need. You didn't have that when you were 14.
No. And oh my gosh, I have it now. I'm pretty obsessed with, you know, using Google to answer some of my questions, you know, or just being able to read other people's opinions, other people's experiences, and just, we're so lucky we live in this age of information where you can just, you know, type into Google, like, I'm feeling lonely, and, like, then you have, like,
all these resources.
Things. Yeah, and you see that other people are too, and psychological studies, and, you know, just lots of good resources. Of course, we all know that you can't trust everything you read on the internet, but there's so much good information out there, and just really being able to read a lot of it and different opinions, and you really can start to see similarities or things that you connect to. You can relate to, and just learn more about yourself. Talking about therapy, learning more about yourself, and just it's been, as I said, medication has been so helpful for me. I just recently, within the last few months, 6 months, have started taking it again. And it's just been really great. It's, it's not like I feel like really happy all the time. It's just I don't feel crushingly sad. And then also being able to talk with people about your problems. Well, I've spent a lot of time doing deep dives on my own and really figuring stuff out about myself. And I've been able to do that sometimes on my own, but it's really nice to have a third party. And, sometimes people, like I say that I've been able to do that on my own, but it's taken years. It would have taken less time if I had had the right help, like the right therapist to help me go through, and their knowledge, they've spent all this time studying. So now I've spent some time studying for myself and being able to relate to things, as I've said. But so one thing you can't do, though, is I've recently been working with the psychiatric nurse from the Center for Mental Health so that I could get on this medication. And recently she gave me this new diagnosis that can go along with my depression, which is something that, of course, it's only been a couple of weeks since I've had this diagnosis, so I'm still testing out what I think about it and doing research. And but it's that I would have ADHD. And, now since I've done some research, I realized that there is all this stigma out there about ADHD, but I was unaware of it, And like I said, I'm 36, and so this is, I think, a diagnosis that comes a lot when, like, the average age, I think, is like 7. But some people do get diagnosed in adulthood, or, it's overlooked a lot in women, I think, something that I've learned. But the point being, I never ever would have come to that conclusion on my own. And reading about it, so much of it applies to me. I can relate to all these things. It answers all these questions. So one reason being depressed, and I didn't want to take medication, I have this, one of my fears was I'm going to have to take this for the rest of my life. And I just didn't like that idea. Now, honestly, that I'm feeling a little bit better, it's like, well, it's okay. Even if I had to take that for the rest of my life, at least I like to live now. And it's like, it's fine. Yeah, it's totally worth it. But, honestly, if you're depressed, there's oftentimes, like, you can just take your medication, you go through a cycle with it, you learn tools to elevate your mood, to take care of yourself better, and then you can get off your medication. So it was interesting to go into this, get a new diagnosis, and then, honestly, you're much more likely to need to take medication for the rest of your life if you have ADHD versus depression. However, even though one of my worst fears was realized, it's not that bad. I came out with all these answers that I didn't have before. And like I said, it hasn't been very long since I've had this diagnosis, but I just can relate so much. It just, there's some things that it's like, oh, I thought these were personality defects of mine. Really, I just need some help with, like, the dopamine levels in my brain.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with like being with maybe the therapist doesn't work for you. Same thing with medicine. Maybe the first medicine that you try doesn't. Everybody's body's chemistry is different. Everything is different for each person. There's no one person. You could diagnose 10 people with the same diagnosis, and how they handle it, each one could be different.
Absolutely.
So just finding the right medicine for you. I was definitely, like, oh, medicine. And then, I went through a point in my life that I needed a little bit, and I took it and was able to feel great, get my routine back, my physical routine, mental, whatever it was. And I didn't have to be on it. It just depends on the person. You could take it forever. You could take it for a couple months. But I do think a lot of people will quit before the medicine starts to work.
Or it does, and you're like, oh, I don't need it anymore.
I feel good. I don't need it anymore, and then they stop taking it.
Yeah, and so just, and I've done that definitely a couple times. And then, quitting cold turkey on some of those is not a good idea.
Again, we're not doctors.
We're not doctors, but that That's true.
But you experienced.
Talk to your doctor about if you can go cold turkey or not. If you start getting medication and you're like, I don't like this, I want to stop, talk to your doctor about that. We'll say that,
Yep.
It's always your choice if you want to be on medication or not. But then just taking care of yourself as you're getting onto it, as you're weaning off. And then I think we keep saying over and over again, try this, try that. There's always another option. And I can tell you when I was really depressed and people would suggest that I keep trying things and try different options and that didn't work. God, that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel hopeless, and that's what it is, you're just a complete loss of hope. You don't really enjoy anything anymore. If you feel something, it's pain and sadness and, feeling alone. I mean, like, it's really hard to be there and just keep going. I guess one of the things that's kept me going when I've been that low and haven't had any hope, and that's, I mean, like, that, it wasn't like a couple of weeks that I didn't have any hope. It was for years, and then I think one of the things that did keep me from planning a suicide or really doing anything more than just like having those passing ideation thoughts is that I guess I referred to in the past my my bad experience with medication in the past, and as a teenager, I started taking some antidepressants to help me. I took some Paxil, which I think now has been found to really say this really smoothly. It's been found to really impact teenagers and make them more likely to commit suicide, which is what I did. I tried to commit suicide when I was 15, and I got scared during it, so I was unsuccessful. And thank God, that's what I've learned. Even, like I said, some of the lowest moments that I've been through, I know, because I did try to kill myself and failed, that is not what I wanted. That it was not the path for me. And yeah, I'm just so grateful. I've been through a lot of extremely painful things since then, but I've also been through some really wonderful and amazing things with life. And I felt really hopeless, and I'm finally at a point again where I do feel hope again, and that, that was a long process of just dealing with things that I was going through. But in some ways, I'm kind of lucky that I had that attempt, because it really made me realize that's not what I want. Like, you don't know how many people love you until you're gone, I guess. In my case, I wasn't gone, but we were just talking about,
going to memorials.
There's been a lot of loss in this community, and going to anyone's memorial who's taken their own life is just, filled with people who loved that person, who all they want to do is hug that person. They didn't know that person was so sad. They didn't realize it was so serious, and everyone, you have that after effect in the community where you kind of maybe see on social media, like, you can come talk to me and you can do that, and people putting themselves out there for people who can't talk. It's just so hard to reach out for help when you are feeling that low. It's absolutely worth it. And even if you can't talk to someone that I hope that we can put like a number on the bottom of the screen that's a national helpline or something like that, someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Or there's a good crisis line in Gunnison Valley, I feel like.
We'll have that listed in the show notes. We'll have all the contacts of who to call if you're feeling that. For sure.
And then, of course, 911 if there's a big emergency. But also, it's just like right now in our healthcare system, the help that you're going to get when you call 911 isn't, absolutely call it if you need to, but it's not, they're not always equipped to deal with mental health crises and crises. And that's just something that I think that we need to work on in the future. I mean, like as a society.
Yeah. And I just really want to say to our listeners out there that if you're feeling this, if you're feeling anxiety or stressed out or depressed, just make the call and get with somebody that can help you through it. So many people have been there, and life is worth it. Life is an amazing, beautiful, incredible place, and surround yourself with the people that get you there. Cause I know I've been there. I know that it seems like you're never going to dig yourself out of that feeling or that hole, but you can. Our minds are super powerful, and you can take control of your life, and you don't have to feel shamed about it. I'm so sick of this stigma thing where if I was sitting here with Molly and I said, "Hey Molly, can you pass me that water? I need to take my cholesterol pill." And you'd be like, "Oh, here." But if I was sitting with Molly and I said, "Hey, can you hand me that water? I need to take my Prozac," or
yeah, I mean, it's like, your Prozac, huh?
All of a sudden you feel like, the words that surround mental health are unstable, not reliable. There's a lot of terms, and like, that's not true.
Yeah, absolutely untrue.
It's not true.
The stigma runs so deep that, I think I mentioned the Center for Mental Health earlier, which is a great thing that we've got in the Gunnison Valley, and I think extends in other places in Colorado. But, people sometimes don't want to go there because it says, it has mental health in there.
I know.
And then people don't like that term. They're afraid of it. Or I was talking with someone once and how they wanted to talk with someone. And, I was like, "Oh, well, have you tried the Center for Mental Health?" This and that, because they have a sliding scale and stuff. And they were like, "Oh, that's only for people that like really need help." And again, a big message that I have is just like, we all need help. We all need to be able to talk to somebody at some point, and reaching out at the beginning of that distress is so important and should be a skill that's taught a little bit more often, that it's not weak to ask for help. It makes you stronger. Like I said, I tried so long to be strong, and nobody knew how much I was being strong. So it's like, I didn't get a pat on the back for, way to hold it together, Molly. It was just like I was so alone with it. And eventually you just can't, that's not sustainable. You can do it for decades, I'm sure, but it's just.
But we don't want you to do it for decades. Don't do it for decades. Get the help. It's really an incredible resource here in our community. Please reach out. Just because I said, life is amazing.
And wherever you are, I know you have goals of this going big. But yeah, wherever you are, whether it's in the Gunnison Valley or not, hopefully there are programs everywhere. It's hard to find things like that. But doing a little bit of research, I think that there are a lot of people that this mental health is really coming into more of a public stage and becoming more acceptable. So CB State of Mind, we're always trying to come up with ideas. How do we break the stigma? How can we get community events going? And so this is something that in the future, hopefully we'll be able to have more events and kind of get the message out. But I just kind of think talking about it at all is reducing stigma. Like you said, we all have struggles, and just being able to talk about it really can ease the pressure of what you're feeling. And it's just like, it's okay.
And for everyone out there listening too, for us, for our community, for people to really have the self-awareness and the empathy to not judge people. It just doesn't do anybody any good. Judging somebody or putting yourself, you think you know what they're going through, or, I always tell my staff, you never know who's sitting at your table. Maybe they just lost a child. Maybe something happened where there was a suicide. And, instead of being like, oh, why is this lady in a bad mood at the grocery store? This lady's complaining at the bank. Have empathy, people. You don't know what people are going through. Be the bright light. Be the support. be the one that like lifts somebody up. I just posted on Facebook the other day. I'm like, compliment 5 people every day. Just every day. That one compliment you give to someone could change the whole entire trajectory of their life. Maybe. You don't know.
Yeah.
So, as a community person and just a human being, have empathy, have compassion. Don't assume that you know what people are going through. I think all of us need to work on that. I think that everybody should work on just being a better person, being more patient, listening, understanding, and talking. And this is what this whole podcast is about, is talking, hearing people's stories. She's an amazing woman. Depression, anxiety comes in many different forms and sizes and shapes, and there's not one answer or one diagnosis or one thing that people have to do. We need to support our people, and we need to support our community, and we need to support the world out there. I hope somebody over in India is listening to this today who's going through something, and maybe we can change someone's life, one story at a time. And I'm really excited to be talking to you. I think you're an inspiration. It's really hard to start a company, and you were doing that with 15 years of anxiety and stuff, and you're an amazing, successful person. And just because you have some challenges in your mental health, it doesn't mean you can't have an amazing, incredible life.
Yeah, and just being willing to accept where you are, I think, is really important. It's also really hard to do. But then just accepting that you need to learn some new tools to help make your life better. And those tools, it's okay to learn how to, having a wonderful, productive, good life is a learned skill. And I'm not all the way there yet. Or we were talking about my routine, I'm working on that. I don't have a strong routine yet. It's something that I'm trying to build because I know how important it can be. And just getting to a point where you realize that these small steps that you're taking are really important. They get you to where you want to go in the long run. And, I'll go ahead and say when I was really depressed, one of those steps for me was just like dental hygiene. I was like, okay. Because it's really, when you're really depressed, it's hard to take care of yourself. And also it's hard to feed yourself. It's hard to be
get ready.
Hygienic. It's hard to get out of bed. It's hard to do all of that. So, honestly, at one point in my life, I built up a lot of self-esteem just by brushing and flossing and being able to take care of myself in that way. Because there was for a while I couldn't do that, which is, it happens. you guys.
Small steps.
Yeah.
Small steps. I always say it. It's the first step is the most difficult, but the subsequent steps get easier, and they build your self-esteem.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's how you can, that's how you can make progress. So, CB State of Mind, I'm a very big supporter of this nonprofit here in our community. I would please like to ask you to donate any amount. If I could get 100,000 listeners to donate $5, $10, $100.
Got 100,000, $1.
100,000. Please support this. Maybe skip one dinner out this week and donate to CB State of Mind. Maybe say, okay, we're not gonna buy a Netflix show this week, or we're not gonna spend money on something, and donate to CB State of Mind. To donate will be in the show notes. I'm also working with the Crested Butte Community Foundation. They are my fiscal sponsorship, so you can donate through the Crested Butte Community Foundation. You can donate directly at CB State of Mind. You can also donate at Secret Stash Media so that I'm able to keep doing this production. Everybody on my team is working for free right now. It's awesome. But asking for donations on all 3 levels so that we can keep bringing these amazing stories to you, and that we can just help more people one day at a time.
Yeah.
And I'll have everything in the show notes. Molly, thank you so much. We talked a couple weeks ago, and we talked for like 2.5 hours or something.
Yeah.
We didn't even think we could fill 5 minutes, but it is so amazing to be doing this. I'm really excited.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for putting this together. It's an amazing amount of work, I know, and thank you.
Awesome.
It's great to be part of it. Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.